Welcome to another episode of our Unicorn Leader Interviews here on the C-Suite podcast, our 39th in the series. My name is Russell Goldsmith, and together with Debbie West, we're thrilled to be joined online from Sofia in Bulgaria by Hristo Borisov, the CEO and co-founder of Payhawk, a leading spend management solution for domestic and international businesses throughout the UK, the US and Europe. Founded in 2018, the company achieved unicorn status in April 2022 when it became the first Bulgarian company to be valued at $1 billion. Welcome to the show, Hristo. Should we start by you telling us a little bit more about Payhawk?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you, Russ and Debbie, for the invitation. Really happy to be here today and to be able to share a little bit more about our story. So starting with Payhawk, we're, as we mentioned, the spend management solution, currently operating in 32 countries. We combine company expenses and payments into one comprehensive solution targeting the office of the CEO, CFO, so that you can actually go and manage all of your company spending in a homogeneous way across the board, resulting in a lot of better user experience with your employees, so that they don't have to do expense reports, they don't have to spend their own money, but also giving a lot of control to the finance team to ensure that this kind of additional spending patterns doesn't result in a lot of chasing of receipts, chasing of invoices, and many other things that you need to do if you give a lot of cost to your employees. So we are currently have offices in 8 countries around the world. We are serving mid-sized enterprise businesses and helping them really manage all of their company expenses directly to their ERP systems from a single prop.
And I mentioned that you're Bulgaria's first unicorn. Am I right in saying you're the only one still? Is that correct?
Yes, we're still the only one, unfortunately.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the obvious reason is access to capital from one side. I think that is one. The second one is you have less access to capital because you have less of addressable market, right? So in general, Eastern Europe and the companies you can build have different scale. And they have different focus on the size of the companies that are usually being created here. And if you compare this to, for example, to the US, which is a much more massive market with a lot of capital available, because there are companies that can able to address much larger population. And in our case, I think we are seeing more and more the gap between the funding bridging. A lot more capital is being available to all of Europe, and we are one example of that, where we have investors coming from the US, from Europe, and from the UK as well, and being a lot more comfortable investing and believing that those companies can actually be born in locations, right, Eastern Europe, and to be able to address markets in Western Europe and West, which I think, the main reason for us is that from day one, Payhawk has been an international business because we serve multinational companies that have offices in multiple locations. We have been able to really focus on building our go-to-market strategy in a way that is addressing these companies that are usually headquarters in UK, France, Spain, and so on. And we have been able to really change the perception that when you speak to an investor and they talk about the company coming from Eastern Europe, usually the perception is you guys have great engineering, zero sales, zero marketing skills. And we have been able to really bring best of both worlds, which resulted in a winning combination.
That's a really interesting point, actually, about the capital that's been available to you. Aside from that, how does being a Bulgarian company influence your strategy and your ambition?
Well, I think from day one, our goal was to be a big company, and we knew that we have to solve a big problem in a big market. So coming from Bulgaria, there was obviously the biggest shortcoming, able to get the funds you need to be able to build a business at that scale. And that was kind of the first thing we had to really work for more than a year, where we got a lot of rejections from investors because they were, especially at the early stage, seed investments. Most of the investors still are more comfortable investing in local companies where they're walking distance from their offices, and they can meet founders every morning for a coffee and so on. Investing seed investment in a foreign country is a big endeavor, much more risk. So, for us, that was kind of the first thing we had to do. But we actually used that as an advantage. So the fact that we didn't have a good, big domestic market allowed us to really focus on much much harder problem. Go and build, go-to-market strategy in markets where you don't have physical presence from day one. And you had to go and convince people to join this company. And when we were 10, 12 employees, we had employees in 4 countries. So from day one, that became kind of we made the disadvantage into an advantage. And what happened was that, as we were scaling our business, we were fully international business. We had employees all over the place, and the culture and the way we built the company was very different than many other companies that had the luxury of the local market, where they managed to scale to, let's say, 200, 250 people before they started expanding. And expanding with 250 people is much harder and a very different challenge than expanding from day one. When you just say, hey, this is the status quo, we need to be international.
Yeah, and clearly that achievement was recognised by your peers in your region because you were awarded CEO of the Year by Forbes Bulgaria in 2022. So congratulations on that achievement. How did it feel to get that award?
Well, I think it was a really big, proud moment. And, when a CEO receives that award, it means that, to me, it's an award for the whole business and for every employee that was part of the journey at that stage. Each one of them contributed for that success. And at the end of the day, you are as strong as your team. And I'm really happy that that was kind of a good mark. Getting the unicorn status was also a good mark, and obviously that wasn't our goal. But we decided to embrace it and say, okay, I mean, it's a great opportunity, but what's next? How do we build from here? How do we make sure that the additional let's say expectations and responsibility that are being put on us are going to be materialized? How are we going to make sure that this success is not just due to luck and just something that was kind of a single event, but how can we actually make sure that this is a sustainable added value for the whole ecosystem, where we actually try to bring those investors more closer to the ecosystem in which we are. We are able to, think about how we actually can influence also the VCs and the overall network that is available in Bulgaria, which has been quite growing. So how can we actually not only meet the startups with the investors, but our investors with the other investors to actually exchange ideas on companies that they can invest in? I think for us, that was kind of the main thing. We didn't expect that much of, let's say, additional responsibilities, but obviously everybody expects that if you achieve success, you're able to share some of this and pay this forward. And this is what we have been trying to embrace over the last 2 years.
Just picking up on you talking about investors there, Hristo. I mentioned at the top of the show you became a unicorn in April 2022. Those conversations with the investors and all those rounds of funding, are you able to share how much funding the business has actually had to date and where that money has been invested?
Yeah, so we have raised about $240 million US dollars today. We have been investing the money, I would say, heavily in R&D because, in general, Payhawk is a product that is simplifying multiple processes that exist today in the business. And today, when we work with a company that's, let's say, choosing Payhawk, they usually have 4 or 5 solutions that they discontinue to have a single platform. So they might have an expense management solution for doing expense reports. They might have an invoice solution for doing APs. They might have a PO system for purchase ordering. They might have multiple banks for cards and invoice payments and reimbursements and so on. And we're usually providing a single platform available in those 32 countries, including debit and credit and international payments and local payments. So this really gives a lot of leverage for the finance team to use a single platform, and it provides economies of scale, it provides more integrated experience, and gives a lot more data and control to the finance team. So for us, building this kind of a system requires a lot of R&D. So a lot of the investments we made actually invested into building this integrated experience in a way where we also take care of, and we take a great pride of this, but we really focus on the user experience for the end customer. At the end of the day, the employee that's on the go, traveling, doing its business, it's his business. It's very important to actually present these people with something that is, productivity tool for them, so that they don't see this as an additional burden or bureaucracy that the finance team is able to do. So we have been able to create what we call freedom within a framework. So you have freedom as an employee within the framework of your finance team that is user-friendly. So building this kind of a complex enterprise systems that is integrated to Oracle NetSuite, Microsoft Dynamics, and 50, 60 HR systems just requires a level of control on how well you actually allow those finance people to control the user experience, so that they don't go too crazy with the bureaucracy, but you still try to take care of both equations. So that's one big investment. The other big investment is obviously on our side, building the offices. So we have physical offices today in London, Berlin, Barcelona, Paris, Amsterdam, Sofia, Vilnius, in New York. We are a office first culture, so all of our employees globally are working from the office, which is quite important for our growth, because at that scale and that fast pace of evolution, we need to make sure that there is a lot of collaboration happening in each of these hubs. Obviously, we are not an employer for everybody. If a lot of people would like to work remotely and so on, that's not the best option for us, but we do have quite flexible work from anywhere policies, work from home policies that are done in a way that do not hamper the collaboration. So, and the last thing is obviously the brand. We recently became a sponsor of Grigor Dimitrov, who is on the ATP Tour, top 10 tennis player, and many other investments that we're making in the space. We have been able to really develop a brand that's associated with efficiency, with quality, with good user experience, and obviously all of this requires a lot of work and investments.
Excellent. And you mentioned the offices that you've been building and the fact that you're based in 8 countries around the world. How is the business structured? Do you have a lot of people actually working on R&D at any one time? And roughly how many people have you got now?
So currently we're about 340 employees. We have, I would say, about 100 people in R&D and in engineering that are currently building the product. In each of our offices outside of Sofia, people are focused on sales, marketing, brand, product marketing, also customer success. So we have those teams spread around the world. And then the G&A and R&D function of the business is based in Sofia, where we have great economies of scale. As I said, we are the first unicorn in the country, which allows us to have really good access to some of the best talent in the country. So this is a kind of a best of both worlds. Having a strong footprint and really good employer branding for acquiring talent is super important. And then we also have quite a good network of local offices where we can hire local talent from sales and marketing perspective, where we can get traction on the specific markets.
Yeah, excellent. And it's great to hear that you've built a really good employer brand. What approach have you taken to establishing your company culture?
Well, I think brand and culture and in general competitive advantage are very well connected things. And in our case, first of all, as a competitive advantage, we are very strong product DNA, engineering background folks. So trying to solve these complex processes and problems that exist in such a fragmented world. I mean, if you look at the payments, there is currencies, countries, different regulations, different systems that those companies are forced to use for expense management, for PO, for AP. And bringing all this in a synchronized way requires very, very heavy engineering that is also integrates with the existing systems, meaning we don't want to replace your ERP systems. You have an ERP systems, you have HR systems, and our product needs to play very well with them to actually provide this. And that's why it starts from there. Who are we and what are we bringing to the market? So that's our competitive advantage. We're building the best and most comprehensive enterprise software where the finance team can build their controls and processes in place without, as we said, hampering the user experience for the employees. And on top of that, to be able to build this kind of a really product-centric culture, you need to get people that are quite tech-savvy. We pride ourselves to be very focused on providing great customer journey for the companies that we work with, which means everybody that you interact with Payhawk needs to be super knowledgeable about the finance function and how the finance function works. And this is where we have been able to bring a lot of finance folks who are part of our solution engineering team, so that when we speak to a customer, they actually speak to a finance person, and they really value that. And stepping on this kind of product knowledge, product DNA, it was very, very important to make sure that we also had a talent focused on in our case, being very aggressive with salaries, very, very aggressive with who we hire, but making sure that we're hiring the best people and we expect the best from them. So it has been a very performance-driven culture. I mean, the whole internal sense is that we're a pro sports team, not a family. So we need to really focus on data metrics. We're very transparent on where we are. We are very transparent on how we're performing as a business. We're keeping employees informed about almost every single decision in the business and try to provide as much context as possible. So it's kind of it's through that matters, transparency, context over control. This is kind of the culture and the brand that we're building. And, the best brands exhibit this internal culture outside so that you can actually see that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you mentioned that level of transparency and information sharing that's really important to your culture. When it comes to internal communications and keeping employees engaged in general, how much involvement do you take in that process?
Well, first of all, everything starts with your leadership team. So my leadership team is obviously the people that are closest to everybody in each department. They're the functional leaders. They own every function in the business. So it is really, really important first for myself to keep and to be 120% aligned with the leadership team, because they're usually the spokespeople on the ground. On top of that, I do monthly updates to every employee. So every employee receives a monthly update from the CEO talking about business performance, lowlights, highlights, challenges, opportunities, and things we're going together as a team. And obviously doing company all-hands events is quite important every quarter. We also bring the whole company twice a year in one place. So we go on winter team building, where we go to Bansko, Bulgaria, where we go skiing and also spend time together. And then in the summer, we go to the Bulgarian seaside, where we spend 3 days as a team playing sports, obviously, but also making sure that we're well aligned, well visible as a leadership team to everybody that's there. And on my side, I also try to spend a lot of time on the road, spending time with in our different offices as much as possible, so that I'm not losing touch with the people on the ground.
Sounds amazing. You got any jobs going? sounds. What a place to work.
I have been asked this question many times.
Hristo, we interviewed our first unicorn leader back in December 2019. I think I mentioned at the start you're our 39th on this series. Lots obviously has changed since that time. I mean, you're clearly proud of being the first unicorn business in Bulgaria, but one of the questions we've been asking our most recent guests is whether or not the term unicorn is still as relevant now as it was back then. What do you think about that?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it is definitely, very different from the very first, unicorns that were created. The expectation was different. The traction was different. The magnitude and scale of these businesses was very different from the rest. I think whether we call them unicorns, decacorns, Pegasus, which is a new one I have heard, which means a profitable unicorn, it is just the labeling. And I think so. Obviously, 2021 wasn't the best year. It raised a lot of expectation for a lot of companies, and that didn't really set many of them for success, because then it was really harder to go and justify this kind of significant hard valuations. We're happy that we're in a very good trajectory, justifying obviously the opportunity we have on the market because of the really large addressable market that we're targeting. But many companies have actually suffered from this kind of higher expectations. I think for now, definitely the market is more conservative when they hear unicorn. It is very different, let's say, animal than what it used to be when it was coined in 2014, 13, 14. I think right now the focus is a lot more about, hey, are those businesses going to become profitable businesses? Whether they're unicorns or decacorns, what it matters is whether they exhibit profitable unit economics, whether they're growing at the pace you expect them for an IPO, whether they're able to really sustain their competitive advantage rather than just burning venture capital. And I think that is the more important conversation that's happening right now. I'm sure that the term is going to change, or maybe the emphasis is going to be more on decacorns, the unicorns, where it's going to be a new animal like a Pegasus. But at the end of the day, I think the important topic is how those businesses can have a success at the public market, which is why all of those VC monies have been invested.
You mentioned a little earlier about your partnership with Grigor Dimitrov, and I wanted to ask you about that. We're actually recording this the day after the Wimbledon Championship, so it's quite timely. Sadly, he had to pull out in the round of 16 because he was injured. But I was just wondering how that relationship came about. It'd just be good to understand kind of like how that works for a business like yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, there were multiple things we looked at when we are partnering with such kind of what we call big bets. First of all, is the audience this person has, and is the audience in the environment in which this person is this relevant business for us? Because we're at the end of the day B2B business, we're not a consumer brand. So in general, we identify that tennis audience is quite very relevant to us, because those usually are people in their early 40s, late 30s. Obviously because of the Federer, the Nadal era that happened, and the Djokovic, obviously the big three. But the audience was really relevant. Second of all, this really feels a good fit for the culture we are building. We are very data-driven, sports mentality, a hardworking team, and we really saw that endorsing a sports person would be a great opportunity and great motivation also internally for employees. For outside of the market, Grigor is known for efficiency, style of play and grace and being a very kind guy. And this is very close to how we are being perceived as a public brand. So it wasn't just the person, it was just how those two brands come in combination. And when we announced the partnership, we actually got a lot from this from the audience. A lot of people were saying, well, this makes so much sense, having the best Bulgarian tennis player with the first Bulgarian unicorn, all of them working in a direction to make everybody much prouder in the country was quite important for us. And I think at the end of the day, the fact that Grigor is somebody that's on tour, playing every month in different countries, in different cities, was also something that really aligns well with our multinational exposure. So a domestic brand wouldn't have made sense for us, but a global brand like Grigor with a global brand like Payhawk made a lot more sense. So that was a good opportunity. Sadly, he had to pull out. I was on the batch at Wimbledon last Sunday, and unfortunately he got an injury, so hopefully he's going to be back on tour as soon as possible.
And are you seeing an impact already? How are you measuring the success of that relationship?
Well, definitely. I mean, first of all, we're getting much better brand recognition. We were just on a call a few weeks back with the CFO from a Croatian company. He said, guys, I'm a really big fan of tennis. Really well done with Grigor. It's happy to see it. And by the way, because we are in payments and financial services, trust is quite important, right? The visibility of the brand, having heard the brand, just being aware that there is such a brand is actually giving you extra points versus a brand that nobody has ever heard before. And obviously, in our case, we're also a regulated business. We have our own licensing in Lithuania. We all have our own license in the UK by the FCA. So there is a lot of other trust elements, but still the perception of the brand is quite important. And we're seeing this from an employer branding perspective, big time, because employees are seeing that, hey, this is a brand that's investing for the right things and has the kind of the right culture internally. And on the customer side, they're definitely getting our brand well recognized.
Great.
That's brilliant. And jumping back to the business, one of the topics that we talk about quite a lot on the podcast now is AI. And of course, that's really important for your platform. Can you tell us a little bit more about how important AI is, but also how much of a challenge is it to keep up to date with innovation in that space now?
Well, first of all, I want to say that AI is from one side, really a great opportunity for everybody that's in business software in general. But on the other side, we're also very careful not to use AI as a hype, right? We are trying to be very, very pragmatic of what are the opportunities you have with AI and how you can actually put AI in to work for you and to work for your customers. And for us, currently, obviously, we use AI for our data extraction engine. So when you upload an invoice in Payhawk, we're reading this invoice in 60 languages, extracting the information automatically, even if the invoice is handwritten, the receipt is handwritten, which still happens in certain locations of the world. So we're able to really use AI for that perspective. We are able to use AI for recognizing invoices that are sent on email so that we can classify them at the right things. We also see a very good opportunity with AI to be a very good, let's say, partner to the finance team for the purpose of looking at insights, trends, and let's say general analysis. Instead of having a person that is able to give you this information, you can build a lot of the reporting and the whole conversational experience with AI down the road, so that you can actually understand more about your business and how your business is operating versus other companies that are in the space. So we're very excited about this part, but we also try to be very pragmatic and not to use this just as a hype word just as a, let's say, a marketing gimmick, which we're concerned that many other companies can do it, and then when you look under the hood, there is actually very little substance. So that's our transition. We're I would say, let's say, productively paranoid about it, but still we try to be pragmatic about how we apply AI and how we use the word.
Hristo, I think we promised to only keep you for about half an hour. We're almost at the end of our time. I just got one last question for you to finish off, and that's basically what's next for Payhawk. Can you share any of your plans for the next 12 to 18 months, maybe?
Absolutely. So obviously on our side, we're continuing to be building more currencies, more countries in which we're able to offer our products. We now just launched credit, so we're able to issue debit and credit cards in 32 countries. We are currently one of the very few companies that can provide you from Europe a US credit card as well. So we're really working on the financial services stack and making this a homogeneous experience, an integrated experience for finance people is important. And on the other side, we're also working a lot on our integrations and our software capabilities. So we recently released very advanced AP modules for purchase ordering. We're releasing just around the corner budgets, allowing you to actually manage your forecasts in real-time information, so you can see budget versus actual and how the business is performing across the board. In general, our goal is very clear. We want to be the gorilla on the market, dominating the mid-size and enterprise space, owning more than 60% of the market in Europe and beyond. So that's our goal, and this is where we are currently focused on to continue driving the business. We have quite strong win rates on the market in the above 30% on new business, which is really great, which means that the market is really valuing what we're able to bring, and they're really comfortable with our solution and our product. And we're currently doing our best to continue bringing new innovation and new products, but also make sure that the existing customers are feeling well satisfied with the services that they receive from end to end, which is quite important. I mean, our, for example, support response time over chat is 37 seconds. So within 37 seconds, you have somebody speaking to you and being able to really answer your questions. Because we are building payments, this is super important. We have seen this not done very well in other companies, and for us, being able to provide this kind of customer journey, customer experience, constantly trying to bring new solutions on the market and being able to really stay in a very cohesive platform is what we focus on. So there is going to be a lot of new releases and features and announcements from our side that are going into that direction over the next 12 to 24 months.
Sounds very exciting. Well, listen, best of luck with all of that. But for now, Hristo Borisov, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine.
Excellent. Listen, we'd love to hear your comments on today's chat. You can do that by sharing them on any of our social media feeds. They're all linked from the top of our website at csuitepodcast.com, where you'll also find all our previous shows and supporting show notes, plus links to where you can follow us on the likes of Spotify and Apple. And if you've liked what you heard, please do give us a positive rating and review. If you're a unicorn leader yourself and you'd like to be part of the series, please do get in touch via the contact form on the website. Plus, of course, anyone can get in touch with any feedback you may have. And finally, you can also also find me, Russell Goldsmith, and Debbie West on LinkedIn. But for now, thanks for listening and goodbye.